Step back in time to an era when Hollywood was dripping in glamour, when the stars were larger than life and the silver screen was truly golden. You know the names: Judy Garland, Gene Kelly, Carol Lombard, Orson Welles. The films: The Wizard of Oz, Singin' in the Rain, Gone with the Wind, Citizen Kane. They don't make movies like they used to, and maybe that's a good thing, because beneath the dazzling lights and carefully crafted personas, old Hollywood had a darker side. Studio heads controlled every aspect of their stars' lives. Scandalous secrets were buried before they could hit the headlines, and some of the biggest names in entertainment had stories that would shock even today's most devoted film buffs. What really went on behind the scenes, who paid the price for fame, and which legends had skeletons in their closets that their studios never wanted the public to know about. Stick around, because vintage Hollywood wasn't just about the movies. It was a world of power, mystery, and untold stories waiting to be uncovered. Let's see how many of these scandals you knew and which came as a complete surprise.
What have you got to kick about? You've got everything that matters. You've got the name, the position, the money.
Hollywood has always been obsessed with beauty and youth. Big, sparkling eyes, perfectly coiffed hair, a figure that looked flawless in every outfit. If you don't fit the mold, your career suffers. It's as simple as that. But if you think today's beauty standards are harsh, imagine trying to survive in vintage Hollywood. Studio contracts dictated everything, including what their stars could eat. We've all heard the heartbreaking stories of Judy Garland's extreme diet of cigarettes, black coffee, and soup, but she wasn't the only one. Greta Garbo once lived on nothing but spinach for weeks, and Marlene Dietrich survived on toast, broth, and cottage cheese. And you know, no one willingly eats cottage cheese. And it wasn't just about weight. Hollywood's leading ladies had to embody the perfect image of femininity, from high heels to flawless complexions. While icons like Katharine Hepburn booked the trend, they were in the minority. Joan Crawford, known for her stunning, almost hypnotic eyes, had a beauty routine that will make you cringe. One of her secrets: soaking her eyes in boric acid, a chemical found in stain removers and pesticides. In her 1971 autobiography, the actress revealed she soaked her eyes in it once a week. She'd first steam her face, then apply a mask and soak her eyes in witch hazel and boric acid. Some of Joan's other beauty secrets: chewing gum to chisel her jawline, a mayonnaise hair mask, and splashing her face with ice-cold water. If this doesn't show that beauty really is pain, we don't know what does.
It's so sad that this relationship had to go that way, because I loved working with him.
Vintage Hollywood is full of tales of stars who took things too far, but few stories are as chilling as the obsession Alfred Hitchcock developed for actress Tippi Hedren. Hitchcock, already a legend in Hollywood, discovered Tippi Hedren after spotting her in a television commercial. He was immediately captivated by her looks and offered her a role in his next big project, The Birds. For a newcomer like Hedren, this was a dream come true. Who wouldn't want to work with one of the most famous directors of all time? But what followed was a nightmare. As filming progressed, Hitchcock's behaviour took a dark turn. He became controlling, demanding, and even isolated Hedren from the rest of the cast and crew. He would often make inappropriate comments about her appearance and seemed to push boundaries in uncomfortable ways. The real horror, though, came during one of the film's most iconic scenes. Hitchcock had promised Hedren that they would use mechanical birds for the famous scene where she's attacked in the bedroom. But when the day came to film, real birds were brought in instead. For 5 grueling days, Hedren had to endure the birds pecking at her, a terrifying and traumatic experience that left her physically and emotionally scarred. But that wasn't the worst of it. In her memoir, Hedren revealed how Hitchcock's obsession grew darker with time. She described how he stalked her home and even tried to kiss her against her will in the back of his limousine. Hitchcock went so far as to manipulate her career, preventing her from working with other directors and blacklisting her from future film roles. Her career, once filled with promise, never fully recovered, despite her undeniable talent. Hitchcock's manipulation didn't stop there. On the set of their next movie, Marnie, he went as far as to install a secret door between his office and her dressing room, an eerie reminder of how deep his obsession had become. Years later, Hedren spoke out about the harassment she endured and became a powerful voice for women in Hollywood, encouraging them to stand up against this kind of abuse. Her courage helped expose the darker side of Hollywood's golden age, a side hidden behind the glitz and glamour of the silver screen.
I know you've told this story before, so we're not breaking news here, but not a lot of people have a Marlon Brando, Elvis Presley story. But you do.
Some Hollywood romances are picture perfect. Others, they're pure chaos. Rita Moreno and Marlon Brando were one of vintage Hollywood's most famous couples, a pairing of undeniable beauty, talent, and fiery passion. But behind the glamour, their relationship was anything but a fairy tale. Brando, already a Hollywood powerhouse, was as charming as he was reckless. Moreno, rising to stardom, was hopelessly drawn to him. For 8 years, they loved, fought, and fell apart, his infidelity and controlling nature pushing her to the edge. One betrayal in particular sent Moreno reeling, finding another woman's lingerie at Brando's house. Heartbroken, she was given an unexpected opportunity for revenge when Elvis Presley's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, invited her on a date with the king of rock and roll himself. She accepted, not because she was in love, but because she knew it would drive Brando insane. Also, who'd say no to going out with the hottest man in music? Moreno and Elvis dated a few times, but while he was sweet, she ultimately found him boring. But that didn't matter, as their relationship did just the trick when it came to making Brando jealous. According to Moreno, he threw chairs in a fit of jealousy while she sat back and watched. She described it as wonderful. But revenge couldn't fix what was already broken. Brando later fell for his mutiny on the Bounty co-star Rita Terry Paya, leaving Moreno devastated. The heartbreak pushed her to a dark place, one that nearly cost her life, until she was found just in time by her assistant and rushed to hospital. A therapist later advised them to stay apart for good. They finally listened. Brando moved on with Terry Paya, while Moreno found lasting love with Leonard Gordon, whom she married in 1965. They remained together until his passing in 2010. The entertainment industry's connection to the criminal underworld was one of Hollywood's biggest open secrets. From Frank Sinatra's rumored mob ties to Marilyn Monroe's questionable associations, many of Tinseltown's biggest stars had brushes with organized crime. But few stories were as shocking or as tragic as what happened to Lana Turner and her lover, Johnny Stompanato. Stompanato wasn't just Turner's boyfriend. He was a notorious enforcer for the Mickey Cohen crime syndicate. Their relationship was passionate but explosive, filled with violence, jealousy, and threats. Then, on April 4th, 1958, it all came to a fatal end. That night, during a heated argument at Turner's Beverly Hills home, Stompanato allegedly threatened her. Terrified for her mother's life, 14-year-old Cheryl Crane grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed him once in the stomach. He collapsed and perished within minutes. What followed was one of Hollywood's most sensational trials. Turner took the stand in a tearful testimony, describing the fear she endured while dating Stompanato. Cheryl, just a teenager, insisted she acted in self-defense. After just 4 hours, the jury ruled it a justifiable homicide. Cheryl was never charged, but the case sent shockwaves through Hollywood. While Lana's career rebounded, Cheryl struggled with the trauma of that night for years to come. But even decades later, whispers of doubt remain. Did Cheryl really commit the crime, or was she covering for her mother? Some believe Lana Turner herself may have been the one holding the knife. The truth? We may never know. The case remains one of Hollywood's most infamous scandals, a a chilling reminder of the dark realities behind the Golden Age's glamorous facade.
Moses supposes his toes are roses, but Moses supposes erroneously.
On screen, Singin in the Rain is a dazzling, joyful masterpiece, but behind the scenes, as Debbie Reynolds later recalled, it was an absolute nightmare. At just 19 years old, Reynolds had no formal dance training when she landed the role of Kathy Selden alongside seasoned actor and dancer Gene Kelly. Unfortunately for her, Kelly wasn't just her co-star, he was also her toughest critic. As the film's co-director alongside Stanley Donen, Kelly was a perfectionist, known for his demanding, intense, and sometimes ruthless approach to filmmaking. He expected Reynolds to perform at the same level as professional dancers, and he didn't have the patience for beginners. For someone relatively new to the industry, it was an amount of pressure that was almost impossible to manage. Reynolds trained relentlessly, pushing herself to the limit just to keep up with her co-star's demands. The legendary Good Morning sequence, it took 15 hours to film, and by the time they wrapped, her feet were bleeding. Kelly forced Reynolds to repeat intricate dance moves over and over, leading to exhaustion and injuries. But quitting wasn't an option, so she kept going. Not only did this break her emotionally, but her body was beginning to show physical signs of the torment she suffered. On top of this, Reynolds recalled that Kelly yelled at her constantly and showed little sympathy for her struggles. At one point, she was so overwhelmed she hid under a piano and cried, until none other than Fred Astaire found her and offered to help her rehearse. Along with being an unexpected and much appreciated offer, this showed Reynolds that there were some genuinely nice guys in Hollywood. And yet, despite it all, Reynolds later spoke fondly of Kelly, admitting that his harsh methods made her a stronger dancer. Even Kelly later in life admitted he may have been too hard on her. But was it all worth it? Well, Singin' in the Rain went on to become one of the greatest musicals in Hollywood history. But for Debbie Reynolds, making it was anything but a dream.
When I say I had a low boiling point, it doesn't mean I went around kicking dogs and old ladies and people.
When you think of Frank Sinatra, you picture that smooth voice, endless charisma, and his legendary status in both Hollywood and the music world. But there's a side to him that's less talked about. Behind that charm was a temper that could erupt at any moment, making Sinatra one of the most feared and unpredictable figures in the industry. Sinatra was infamous for his wild outbursts. He didn't hold back when he was angry, and he was notorious for flipping tables, throwing drinks, and even smashing furniture. Imagine the scene. One time, after a heated argument, he took a baseball bat to a car. In another, he threw a phone out of a hotel window. Journalists and photographers were frequent targets. If he didn't like what they wrote, he wasn't afraid to lash out, sometimes physically. Talk about controlling the press. Sinatra was also known to hold lifelong grudges against those who'd crossed him. He had major fallouts with people like Marlon Brando, Humphrey Bogart, and even his former Rat Pack pal, Peter Lawford. He refused to forgive or forget, and his temper often ruined friendships and professional relationships. His relationships, especially his one with Ava Gardner, were passionate but highly volatile. They had legendary fights, with Sinatra once punching a wall so hard he broke his hand. After their breakup, his mood swings and depression nearly led him to take his own life. But despite all the chaos, there was another side to Sinatra. His generosity, loyalty, and deep friendships. One moment, he could be your best friend, full of warmth and kindness, and the next, you'd find yourself on the receiving end of his temper. Sinatra's voice captured the hearts of millions, but it was his fiery temper that made just as many enemies. A man of contradictions, Sinatra's legacy isn't just about the music, it's about the complex, unpredictable force that was Frank Sinatra.
How did Rock Hudson date? He would come over at lunchtime, I'd come back from work, and we go out to lunch. He never seemed to be uptight about it in public.
Hollywood in the 20th century had one golden rule: protect image at all costs. Studios controlled everything, from what their stars ate to how they behaved. in public, and when it came to morality, there was no room for scandal. Moral clauses in actor contracts meant that if a star's reputation took a hit, so did their career. It all started with the infamous Fatty Arbuckle scandal, but soon these rules applied to anyone who didn't fit Hollywood's carefully crafted image, including those whose love lives didn't align with the era's strict expectations. For actors who were secretly homosexual, movie studios had a solution: Lavender Marriages, carefully arranged unions designed to create the illusion of a traditional relationship. But as you might expect, these marriages rarely lasted. The issue with sexuality and sham marriages for historians is that many assumptions are based on speculation and rumours. The most famous example, Rock Hudson and Phyllis Gates. The pair wed in 1955, but within 2 years they had separated, just as rumours of Hudson's affair during the filming of A Farewell to Arms began to swirl. His sexuality wouldn't become public knowledge until decades later, but within Hollywood, many already knew the truth. And if marriage wasn't an option, studios had another trick up their sleeve: sham dates. Whether the stars liked each other or not, if the studio said they were an item, they had to play the part. One of the most famous cases, Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney during the press tour for Babe in Arms. While she fell for him, he had other plans, and their romance was never more than an act for the cameras. And there you have it, a glimpse into the wild, mysterious, and often shocking side of vintage Hollywood. Behind all the glitz, the glamour, and the iconic moments on screen, there were stories of dark secrets, scandalous affairs, and unforgettable drama that the public never got to see. These stars were larger than life, but like all of us, they had their own demons, struggles, and stories that didn't always make headlines. From the obsession that haunted Tippi Hedren to the mob connections in Sinatra's world and the unforgettable tragedies that rocked Hollywood, these are the stories that remind us that behind every legend is a hidden truth waiting to be uncovered. What's the most shocking vintage Hollywood secret you've heard about? If you want more behind-the-scenes stories from Hollywood's golden age, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of the drama. Until next time, stay curious and remember, the world of vintage cinema may seem like a fairy tale, but sometimes it's the darkest secrets that make the story unforgettable.